Good evening, everyone. First of all, we apologize for the short delay, but we are here and we are band up and ready to have this conversation about conflict resolution. How do we go about it? In our previous show on Saturday, we talked about some of the conflicts that we face. We talked about how can we have a proper apology, and today we want to look at some of the ways that we can resolve this conflict outside of court, within the court system. We want to see some of these conflicts that are really challenging. How can we resolve them? And we are going to be guided by your questions from our previous show on Saturday. And we had one from Nancy that said that sometimes the parties do what they do want to sort out the differences, but they have exhausted everything they know how to do. You have tried talking to the person who you're in dispute with. You have tried inviting your elders, your aunties, and your uncles to the conversation to see how is it that you can resolve it. You are not getting anywhere. And she was asking, in such cases, is getting help from a qualified mediator an option? And today, that's what this show is all about. So allow me to invite my friend to the show to come and greet you, so that he's going to be our guide on what is mediation, how do we go about mediation, how do you approach a mediator, where do we even find a mediator, and do we even have mediators in Kenya, professional mediators who can come in and settle a dispute between employer and the employee, insurance companies and their insurers, all those people that end up in conflict. How can we professionally resolve those conflicts? So allow me to welcome my friend, Mr. Kinovia. Welcome to the show, my brother. How are you doing?
Very good evening. Thank you. I'm well. Happy to be here.
Yes. Yes.
Pokea salamu, ndio hiyo. Yes.
Where
And
have you
yes,
been hiding?
I'm
I
glad.
mean, COVID has been crazy. COVID has been made all of us not to see each other. Where have you been hiding and how are you doing?
I've been hiding in the courts. I've been doing mediation. People have lots of
Yes.
conflict, so they need professional mediators. They need arbitration. So that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, that is so good to hear.
Yeah.
And now I just want us to get to dive right into the show because we are already late. And I want you to tell us what is who is a mediator. Let's start from there before we know what is mediation. So, who is a mediator?
I think it's very simple. Mediation is as old as human beings themselves. A mediator is a neutral third party who comes and helps two conflicting people to actually resolve their dispute amicably and, if possible, out of court. So a mediator does not resolve the dispute for them, but he facilitates and gives them an opportunity to actually resolve the conflict themselves.
Mm-hmm. So
Yes.
that is who a mediator is. So now, what is the mediation itself? What normally happens? How do you bring the parties together? So this mediation, for us to understand in a layman's language, Kinuthia, what is it? Ndio tujue history ya mediation inatokanga wapi, and help us understand. So what happens during that setting? What is it? What is that mediation?
Okay, you see, before you even go to the complex mediation, which is court annexed mediation, mediation is basically Kamau has fought with Jambi, or so and so has had a quarrel with so and so. And the mediator comes as a neutral third party and gives an opportunity first, because sometimes when people are quarreling, they don't listen to each other. They are quick to respond. They don't see their own mistake. And so a mediator is the kind of person who comes and says, you have 5 minutes, speak. And so for the next 5 minutes, I don't want to hear you speaking. And then they can be able to articulate what their problem is and exactly how they feel, and they are able to explain the problem from their angle. And then you give the other person an equal 5 minutes, and they also come in and give their part of the story. And then once you listen, you are able to identify what are the main issues, what are the underlying issues. Because this is the beauty of mediation as opposed to litigation. Now, litigation ni ile mnaenda kotini, huyu anapelekana na huyu kotini. The beauty of mediation is that you are able to get to the core, the underlying issue. You see, in court, they only look at the law. They say, for example, so-and-so was married to so-and-so. So if it's a matrimonial dispute, itagawanwa hivi. That's what the law says, full stop. But mediation goes a little bit further and probably tries to say, during the subsistence of the marriage, it was so-and-so who was paying for the mortgage of that house through her own salary. The man was not paying for the mortgage of that house. So when you come and say that, for example, in law that you split that property 50-50, the lady from whom salary that house was being paid actually does suffer and will never be happy and comfortable with the court decision. So mediation is able to get to the heart of the dispute. Mediation is able to get to those things that people would ordinarily not be able to say and bring them out so that people are able to heal and restore friendship and relationships. That's the beauty of mediation, that after a mediation session, it will be possible for two parties who are at dispute to actually work together again. A supplier and a school, for example. You've been supplying cabbages to a school for 10 years. Then for some reason, the school is not able to pay you. If you go to court, the court might rule the school pays you. Then you become enemies, and that's the end of the contract. But with mediation, it will be like, okay, what do you want? And they'll be like, hata akinilipa 50% sahi, na hiyo ingine tukubaliane tuandikishane atalipa hivi. So it's a win-win for both parties. Yeah.
I'm tempted to ask you, Kinuthia, are there cases that cannot apply mediation, and are there cases that are primarily you'd recommend mediation? And when I say that, what I mean is issues of child support is one of the major crazy issues, especially in this country. We have people who are accusing fathers of being deadbeat dads, and yet they have not sorted an amicable way of resolving the dispute. Would mediation help such kind of a family, or a blended family? You have a blended family, you have a child outside, you have a new family, and you're trying to balance that conversation. Would mediation be an ideal way of resolving such? And I would like you to give us a practical example of how mediation would come to play in that kind of a situation.
Perfect. Okay, the first thing I need to say, the rule of thumb, basically the rule that applies across the board, is that criminal cases cannot be mediated. So that's the rule of thumb. But you see, as you go along life, you realize that there are opportunities that have arisen in our courts, and we have 2 or 3 cases where criminal cases have actually been mediated. Mediation has been preserved for, civil cases. Civil in the sense that we had a business together, it went wrong. We had a contract for a sale of motor vehicle. We had, so it's cases that, like now, for example, if you assault someone, the justice system is hesitant to allow you to mediate on assault because it's a criminal offense. If you steal somebody's car, if you rob, you break in, violence, rape, you cannot mediate on rape. That's the rule of thumb. So sometimes it happens. So, but issues of especially child support are best dealt with at mediation. Because one of the reasons that people hate courts is once you go to court, there will be one winner, there will be one loser. If you go to court, for example, and you're looking for custody, the court will look at what kind of a father are you, or what kind of a mother are you. If they see, for example, one of the parents is a drunkard, a drug addict, has bad company, they are not able to take care of themselves, the court might refuse to grant them child support. Might refuse to grant them the opportunity to raise the child. But you see now with mediation, it goes beyond that. It goes to the point where they say, this guy, okay, over the weekends he's also very drunk. But on a Monday, Tuesday, he's a very good father. He can actually take the children for a movie. So mediation comes in very handy when you're discussing children, because then you're allowed to say what is workable in the circumstances of each particular case. So the best approach I usually tell people, when you have a family dispute, the best place to resolve a family dispute is at the mediation table, because then you have equal bargaining power. You are able to suggest, you're able to listen to one another, and you're able to come out openly. And compare this with litigation. Litigation is I have prepared a defense. Nitakataa hii, nitakana hii, I'll not incriminate myself on this, and so on and so forth. Mediation is different. People come there with a softened heart. They come there saying, enyewe hapa nilikosa. Hapa enyewe nilifanya makosa. As the father of this child, I made this mistake. And the woman will come and say, okay, as the mother or as a wife, I made this mistake. And once you make that admission, it prepares the other heart to also make some admission and to cede some ground. So we don't come there in defense. We come there ready to provide a solution to the problem. And what makes this possible is the mediation rules. For example, a simple rule like confidentiality, that whatever you say at a mediation table that has been said in good faith can never be used as evidence against you in a court of law. So if, for example, I come and admit and say, okay, I made a mistake, I mistreated my daughter, for example, and then we fail to agree at mediation, you decide to go to court and say, unajua tukiwa mediation alikuja akasema hivi na hivi na hivi, the court will reject that because it was said in good faith, it was said during mediation, and it was said with the intention of trying to bring to an end the conflict that exists. Yeah.
So, well, because this is a family show and you majorly focus on family, our main target are families, are couples, are relatives, are siblings who are in rivalry and they're in dispute over family matters, and mostly their children, their land disputes, and we even have domestic violence also added into that, and we have rape.
Yes.
And it's good to know that what is classified as a criminal offense cannot be mediated. I feel a bit comforted by that. So what the clarification I would like on what is classified as a criminal offense would be, is rape classified as a criminal offense? So if an uncle or a father rapes a child, then they are classified as a criminal offense and there's no mediation?
Yes, that needs to be absolutely clear. The rule of thumb is, you see, in fact, now an uncle raping a child is not even rape. That goes beyond rape. It's defilement. It's a higher degree of the offense. So that one, you see, this is a ruined life. This is a life that has just been thrown, because when that happens to a young child, their life will never be the same again, psychologically, emotionally, and even physically, because there's a lot of damage that happens. So those ones are criminal offenses. They are dealt with as criminals. They go through the justice system so that they can end up in punishment. That's the whole idea. You see, for child support, for example, we are not looking to punish any parent. We are looking to bring up the children. But when someone commits an offense like assault, an offense like rape, an offense like murder, there is no mediation allowed. You go face the justice system, and the penal code is clear. You killed someone, you get X number of years, and boom.
The reason why I have asked the question about rape and the criminal offenses is because I've had scenarios where a child is defiled and the people of the community come together, the parents or the persons of the victim, the rape survivor, and the persons of the person who has committed the crime. They come together even outside of the law, and they agree on some amount of money, and it's paid to this family of the survivor. And then in the process, and I don't know what normally happens in those kind of cases, and I really wanted that to be clear, so that if there's somebody out there who is facing that kind of a situation, then they know that this is not something that can be mediated, and it can be pushed forward and actually brought before the court of law. And I like what you have said about the issue of child support, that nobody is looking to punish the other, because I think whenever families or whenever fathers or mothers hear, because now it's two-way, even women are abandoning their children, whenever somebody hears, I'll take you to court to force you to take care of your child, then things flare up. It's important that people note that mediation actually isn't looking to punish everybody. It's just looking to hear both sides of the coin and find a middle ground. I think that's the main objective of mediation, to find a middle ground, right?
Yes, certainly. You see, mediation is about, usually in every conflict, the best solution to every conflict comes from the people who are fighting themselves. They carry on one hand the conflict, and on the other hand the solution to the conflict. It's like the people who make poison. They usually have the best antidote for it. So, and you see, when you're going to court to start with, you two are trying to explain to the judge what your conflict is. And you're expecting the judge to give you a solution to a conflict that the two of you understand better than the judge himself. So when we give you an opportunity to be the first persons to actually create solutions to your conflict, it becomes easy because you're not even explaining the conflict to yourselves to start with. Because if you understand the position of a judge or a magistrate, they will first sit and listen for a very long time to understand the nature of the conflict, to internalize it, to even ask questions, to try and prove that what you are saying is true and not false and so on. That's why there's cross-examination and so on and so forth. The court process is quite tedious. So, but if we get you, husband, you, wife, sit down, enye tuambieni tu kweli. Did you insult him? The guy will be like, enye nilimchapa coffee, but sikuamka tu nikamchapa coffee, alinitukana. And then so you get, they admit their own faults. Each of them begins to say, yes, I made this mistake. Yes, I made this mistake. And then you start showing them the dangers of actually going through a court process. Because what could happen is that one of them could be jailed, for example, for assault. And if they are, then now the children are even left with one parent, which then becomes even worse when they are left with one parent. So in my view, the people who are part of the conflict understand the conflict better than anybody else. And it is their duty, therefore, to actually try and resolve the conflict.
So much. Thank you. I can hear you have security where the dogs are barking.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry. Wanaringa juu wanajua niko huku. Poleni sana for the noise.
Hawajui tuko live. Now I want to ask, what happens, Kinodia, if one party refuses to mediate? The wife wants to mediate, the husband doesn't want to mediate. The husband wants to mediate, the wife doesn't want to mediate. The sister wants to mediate, the brother doesn't want to mediate. So what happens in such a case? Can you force them to mediate? Can you invite them? Can you send them a letter of invitation that compels them to mediate? Or what is the way forward in this kind of a scenario?
Awesome. You see, mediation is the best and the easiest form of conflict resolution. Any person refusing to mediate is looking for a slightly more complex way and a slightly more expensive way of resolving their dispute. So what we do ordinarily is we invite them to go to court and file that dispute. And what happens is when that person goes to court and they file the dispute in court, it goes through something called screening. Screening nowadays is a mandatory stage where any matter that is filed in court of a civil nature, it goes through a process of being checked whether it can be mediated or arbitrated. And the court will actually decide, even on your behalf. Now, this time round, you had a mediator that you had chosen as a family who you think could have resolved the matter easily. You say no. And what happens is the court now actually does choose a mediator for you. Because if it is screened and found that this is not a matter that should be entertained by the magistrate, it will not be entertained by the magistrate. It will actually be sent to mediation. And if it's sent to mediation, the courts have a panel of accredited mediators, so they will choose one and the case will be sent to them, so it will still go to mediation. If that does not happen and it is filed, the party who wanted to solve it through mediation can still apply to the court and actually tell them that I feel I would rather have a sit down and solve this matter out of court. And if we are unable, then it can come back to court. As long as one party has made that appeal to the court, it will be granted. So it's not all lost when one party says they do not want to mediate. Yeah.
Oh, that is very comforting. So, gentlemen out there, who your girlfriends and your baby mamas are taking you to court and forcing you to be subject to, to court, you're welcome to ask for a mediator, and it will actually help to resolve the conflict outside of the court. Because I believe when you solve something inside the court, the relationship is really severed and tarnished. Now, we are about to go on the break and just take a few minutes break and just have a breather. And then I'm going to come back to the comment sections and we are going to read what you guys are saying. So if you have any questions on mediation, arbitration, any questions you want to find out, how can you get a mediator, at what point do you need a mediator, any questions whatsoever, please leave them on the comments section below, because that's where we are starting from when we come back, and we will be right back in a minute.
You might be seated there thinking that someone forgave you and you continue doing your nonsense. They have a big heart to handle everything, and they might be smiling at you when they want to break your neck, and you might not know. But always know, when such a thing happens, a comeback is always on the way. When is always the problem.
It is because there is a sense of betrayal. And if they were to go ahead and do the DNA, and it came out that whoever they are raising is not their biological child, that man, even though he has raised that child for 20 years, is completely shattered. And they might, at face value, say that, yes, okay, it's okay, our father is in raising, not the siring, all those nice things we tell ourselves. But deep down, this man is shattered.
And I know you have been wondering during this whole time, where is Ellie? I was just about to ask him, where are you, Ellie? He's saying, great conversation, watching from my phone. Hey, Ellie. So you must be having a good time watching from your phone. Guys over here are missing you. Send your shout out to Ellie at hashtag responding to life and hashtag marriage connect Kenya. So let's get into the comment section and let's see what these guys are saying over here. So I'm going to do what Ellie normally does. I'm going to start from the top. So we have Hennessy saying, true girl. I don't know what was true. We have Nora Ambata saying, tuned. Thank you so much and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We have Locked Awesomeness. Leave your comments down below in the section. Please share the links and fantastic. So the conversation is looking good. I am hearing a lot of positive feedback from all of you. Hello, Joyfree. How are you doing this lovely evening? It's good to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome to each and every one of you. I have Julius Peter who is saying, guy, really? Well, yes, really, that's what is happening. So I appreciate each and every one of you who is tuned from wherever you're tuned from. Let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions about mediation. This is your time to ask. We have a professional with us today who can be able to answer those questions. If you have a scenario and you're wondering, would this scenario apply to mediation? With this particular kind of a situation, welcome mediation. Please leave those questions in the comments below and we will be answering each and every one of them. Now, I have one particular comment here from Eli, and he's saying that talking of rape, it said that families end up taking money and decide to settle out of court. Should we advocate for mediation or full force of the law comes into play? And I believe our panelist today has really answered that question at full length and say that what is classified as a criminal offense, mediation isn't the first priority. Isn't that what you said, Kenodia, that where there is criminal offense such as rape, assault, domestic violence, then mediation is not the first option that we should go for, right?
Yes, definitely.
Excellent. Sorry, continue.
No. For rape, what I wanted to make very, very clear is sometimes people fail at inception. A rape needs to be reported within the earliest possible opportunity of occurrence. And sometimes what happens is in those cases, you find that case has not even found itself to the police abstract or to the OB for that matter. But I think the first instance of the occurrence of a rape, it should be reported. Yeah, then
and I'm curious. I think we need to actually go on a rabbit trail a little bit on that, and maybe because you're here, you can maybe guide somebody if rape should occur to you as a person, and this applies to both genders because men are also being raped and they don't know what to do. They are also being sexually violated, and we are so quiet about it, and it's happening to our boy child. So if it happens to you, either you're a male or you're a female, or if it happens to somebody who you know, I don't know if you can take us through what are some of the steps that somebody can take to ensure that this case actually holds ground in front of a judge, and you can actually be able to prove that rape did happen, and this person can be prosecuted based on the evidence that you have been able to provide for the court.
Okay, first and foremost, it's very tricky because you're supposed to report as soon as it happens, and you're supposed to report to the nearest police station before you even go to hospital, or you're supposed to start with the hospital actually if you can, because samples will be collected, especially for the ladies, because at the reproductive organ of the lady, there'll be deposits that can prove that rape actually did happen. And men do not know that even if you're using what you'd call protection, maybe some pubic hair will be left here and there that can be picked up and used as DNA evidence against the person. Because again, in a court of law, what will help you is evidence, not everything that you shout and say so loudly, he forced himself on me and so on and so forth. Hardcore evidence will have to be adduced in court. Now, the problem becomes very hard because now for men, proving that a man has actually been raped becomes a very huge challenge. Because first and foremost, the police will laugh at you. When you go to the police, you can imagine me walking to a police station and telling the cops there, I've come to report a rape. And then they'll be like, who has been raped? And they will say, me. And then it becomes very tricky. Now, not unless I just tell them maybe I've been sodomized, maybe they would consider that. But if you say as a man you've been, they'll laugh at you. So first, it needs to change from the side of the law enforcement officers. They need to be trained that this is 21st century. This is happening to men. And when they come, don't laugh. You know, it's like a man walking to a police station and saying he's been beaten by the wife. They would actually even probably just laugh at you or even beat you up. And it happens a lot. They just laugh at you and tell you, unapigwa kwani wewe ndio mwanamke. So it's very tricky for men. Boy child akona shida. But yeah, it happens every other time. And yes, the first step, if you can get to the nearest medical place, get a report from the doctor, go to the police station, make a report, and then let the case follow from there.
I get very concerned when I hear that our police officers that have been sworn to serve and to protect actually are biased towards a particular gender when some criminal offenses are real and they are there. I don't know whether we need to take a banner and highlight on social media that this is happening so that training and awareness is created. But I wanted to just ask you a question again on rape because there's somebody who has I think it is Zwena and it is in the comment section. I would like to highlight that question there again, and she's asking if you can still report a rape case after 17 years of the occurrence. Can you still go to court and say the person raped you after 17 years have passed and gone by?
Yes. In
So
law, there's something called limitation of actions. And limitation of actions occurs where, for example, an insurance matter, you have about 6 years within which to report an insurance case. So if you're claiming from an insurance, maybe your car was hit or an insurance claim or whatever, say it's set at 6 years. After 6 years, you cannot. But for criminal case, even 100 years, even that's why you saw some people who were trying to file a matter in court and trying to accuse the Roman Empire of having crucified Jesus and saying that that's a criminal offense that occurred. And so in law, you get all sorts of things. And that's why you saw even the people who went to court about the Mau Mau case and won a lot of millions from the British government, because there's no limitations on actions that are of criminal nature that can be taken to court and when they can be taken to court. But for if it was what would be called a tort or things like the example I've given on insurance, yes, those ones have a limitation of time. So if it happened 17 years ago, the $1 million question would be proving. And if, for example, the evidence is you probably conceived and gave birth and the child is alive, yes, the DNA will prove the child is alive. But then how do you prove to the courts that there was penetration and that penetration was forceful and there was no consent. So that would be the tricky bit. But yes, in terms of filing, you can file.
And I have seen also in the issue of rape, and I think maybe it's inspiring a lot of conversation in the comment section. I think keeping those clothes that you are wearing in a bag, a paper bag rather, not ile ya karatasi, ile ya what cotton, like hizi zenye tunatumia siku hizi zenye haziharibu. If you can store that, I've seen cases where that evidence is found after 17, 20 years, and it's still, the DNA still holds case and holds water in a court of law. Now, I want to go back to our mediation topic today, and I want to ask you, will mediation, some of the challenges that come with conflict is how to resolve that conflict. Besides hearing this person, what they're saying and what the other person is saying, and bringing the parties together, does mediation give suggestions as to how to resolve the conflict itself, or to come up with a solution? Does the mediator actually do that for the affected parties?
Ordinarily, we are supposed to let you come up with the suggestions to your problem. But you see, they say that they have a better view of the valley, they who are on top of the hill. And they have a better view of the hill, those who are at the bottom of the valley. So a mediator is able to see right through the hearts and the ears of the people. You're able to even tell what they are not saying. And that's why you're able to come up with solutions. That's why you're able to tell them, for example, in a family mediation, that what if you went the direction of co-parenting, for example? Because you can tell a toxic relationship. Maybe there's one spouse who wants to hold on to a marriage just because they were told that boma haitupwi, so usitoke. And then there's you can see as a mediator that huyu akirudi huko anaenda kukufa. So sometimes there are cases that have come right before my eyes, and I look at them and I tell them, I think you need to work on yourself. When I look at you need to see a professional counselor personally, and you also need to do the same. Go work on yourself for a period of 3 months, and you go work on yourself for a period of 3 months. And then after that, we can come and have the last mediation session. Usually after the 3 months, they tell you, and I didn't know who I was. This person had told me such horrible things about me that everything I believed about myself became negative. And so that person goes through a journey of trying to rediscover themselves and trying to heal. And when they do that, they come and tell you, I don't even want to live with that man again, or I don't even want to see that woman again. So you realize here, I have not told them that you are in the wrong marriage. What I have told them is, if you took just 3 months off to work on yourself, to heal, so that you don't become insane, you don't go into depression. And the minute they work on themselves, they realize, I have not been living my life. I have been living this man's life. I have been doing things for him. I have been doing what makes him happy or what makes her happy. And I had never had an opportunity to live my life as a person. And many people usually end up quitting that relationship and living better lives. Others become better people and come apologize to their spouses and say, I was the weak link in this relationship, and then they work things out. So yes, we do give suggestions.
I like that. I like that a lot, because when it comes to domestic violence and it's affecting the woman, because what normally comes out mostly is the man who is violent towards the women. And like you are giving an example, you're talking about sodomization and rape. Rarely will men come forth and say they are being domestically abused by women. And we have seen women abusing men, even physically beating them, emotionally abusing, financially abusing them. So when it comes to domestic violence, I find it to be very difficult to deal with, because most cases we invite our relatives, you invite the parents, the in-laws, and you start having these conversations with your sisters and your siblings and friends and your best couple, trying to resolve this situation. And there's a biasness. I normally find there to be a biasness. There is less of objectivity and neutral ground. So what would you recommend for those kind of people who are in those kind of situations, and they have tried to involve family, they have tried to ask the church pastors to help them to resolve, especially when there's domestic violence involved? What would be your recommendation in that kind of a situation?
Number one, don't stay a minute more in a violent relationship. 1 minute is too long. It takes a few seconds to lift a knife and stab, and you're dead. So a minute is too long. And I usually tell people a minute is too long if you're in an abusive relationship. I have seen an abusive relationship where the man used to beat up the wife so many times. And one day she was just holding a kettle and she was slapped and she returned. And the way that guy was hit at the back of the head, he fell and died. So this is a woman who has never fought back. This is a woman who has never beaten her husband. This is a woman who has been beaten like a punching bag. It took only one blow. I don't think it even took 30 seconds. He was hit on the rear side of the head. He fell, hit the floor, and he died. So what are we trying to say? We're trying to say that the minute you're in a toxic relationship where there is physical violence, actual physical violence, don't take a minute more. If you can wait for morning, hata afadhali ulale kwa jirani ama kwa rafiki ama hata uende ukaishi kwa nyumba ya mabati, wachane na hiyo nyumba yenyu mzuri, because nobody deserves to be beaten. Nobody deserves to be put through domestic violence. And when you leave, the first 1 week will be hard. You actually start missing the person who was beating you. You actually start feeling like you belong to them, like you owe them, like you are sorry because you left them for beating you. But when you go through the first and the second month is when you realize, honestly, this was a decision for me, not for them. And now you begin to acquire happiness. And then, mind you, Kenya has 47 million other people. So huyu mmoja anakusumbua akili kwa nini? And I'm not saying leave people and automatically go to the next one, but 52% of this population is women. So if you are a man and you have a woman who is putting you through hell, or if you're a woman and you have a man who is beating you up, God has not stopped creating good men. First, walk out of that one. If that person does change, and if that person genuinely wants to reconcile and they want to change their ways, then you can go back to them. If they do not want to do it, it's not even a problem living alone. But domestic violence should not be tolerated for a minute more. It takes only 30 seconds to pick up a knife and pass it through someone's heart.
I like that. I like we can candidly have these conversations and openly talk about these things. You've mentioned that mediation happens in sessions. And some of us get very concerned when we hear they happen in sessions. We are wondering, how long does mediation take? Does it take the same length period as a court case would take? Does it take the same length period as a counseling session would take with a professional? How long ideally, or in terms of time frame, how long would it take for a proper mediation process to take place and for it to actually be termed as mediation has occurred? Because we saw when Kibaki and Raila, I think the mediation took about a month or something. So we are curious to find out, how long would it take?
Perfect. I am handling a case. I am handling an employment and labor relations case that was filed in court in 2015. We've met twice. We are meeting one last time to sign the agreement. We met on a Tuesday. We met on a Friday. We are meeting on a Tuesday the next week to sign the agreement. 3 meetings for a court case that was filed in 2015. Mediation is a record deal breaker. You will never have a simpler, faster method of resolving disputes than mediation. And most of the family disputes I've seen that go along the lines of land and property. I mean, you've had land cases that take 30 years. Kenobi anaitiwa hiyo kesi 2-3 weeks, it's done. Because mediation, you're appealing to the interest. You tell someone, okay, rudisheni kotini, ikae another 30 years, mutakuwa mumekufa bila shamba. Afadhali hata mwenye alikuwa na claim 10 acres, apatiwe 2.5, and then you start presenting them with what the option is. What is the alternative? Like now, I've just watched news today. If you file a matter at the land registry, the land and environment court today, you will have a hearing in 2024. That's the first mention. That's the earliest date you can get, because our courts are congested. Now, in your right thinking mind, why would you want to go and file a case that will be heard in 2024? Seek mediation. Sit down. If you go to the family division now, not unless matters are urgent, absolutely urgent, they involve like the life of the child themselves and they're being filed under certificate of urgency, which by the certificate of urgency unaweza pewa 1 month. So you wonder how urgent is a month na mtoto ako na njaa. But mediation, we can meet in the morning, agree over lunch hour. You find husband and wife hugging and crying and saying, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do this again. And as a mediator, you go clapping and saying, yeah, they've hugged, and you pray that they'll be fine. So mediation is the fastest. Yeah.
I like that. And you've mentioned when you were talking about mediation, you've said of signing of a contract. And I'm wondering,
Yeah.
when the mediation happens, the agreement that happens between the two parties, is it a binding document? Does it still hold? Does it stand before court as we agreed as this? Then the other person cannot turn around and again and say, I was coerced or I was forced, I was not in my right mind. Now I want to challenge the agreement. What happens once the agreement has been reached? Aki, we need to be real. People are funny.
Awesome.
Mtu atakubali
Awesome.
assign
Uh-huh.
contract and then after a few 2 years 3 years aanza kusema ati hapana, huyu mtu ako na pesa mingi sana, angenipatia mingi kuliko yenye alinipea, or he should take better care of the child, or he should be involved more in this and that, and they want more than what they got. So what happens when that mediation has already, the document have been signed and it has been finalized? Can you use it to stop the other person from coming after you in the future?
Two things. First, there's something called court annexed mediation, which simply means the matter had been filed in court. It was then given to a mediator by the court. Any agreement you come up with out of a court annexed mediation is a binding judgment of the court. The court adopts it, and whoever defaults in their part of the bargain is treated as someone who is in contempt of court, or as someone who has disobeyed a court order. So a mediation agreement is totally binding once it is filed and adopted by the court. And even if the mediation is not arising out of court annexed mediation, say the two of us agree to mediate and we do an agreement, you can still file that agreement in court, and once it's adopted by the court, it becomes a binding agreement of the court. Number two, which Kenyans will find very interesting and which I love talking about, is a mediation agreement has got no appeal. Uliona BBI ikipelekwa appeal. Isi BBI haina appeal. Once you do a mediation agreement freely and you sign out of your own free will, there's a lot of case law. Now, if I was talking to lawyers and advocates, we would share those case laws and would be saying, which one? Yeah. But yes, there's case law. There's a lot of case law on mediation agreements being final and they have no appeal. So not only are they binding, they are better than court judgments because they have no appeal. Yeah, they are that serious.
That is, hey, I like that. I know the fathers are clapping, all the single dads are there thinking, hey, this is the way to get. Is it affordable to go through mediation? I'm just curious to find out. Before I want to take you back to the land issue, because I feel that's also something that we need to address, especially when it comes to polygamous family. But before we get there, is mediation expensive? Is it as paying for a counseling session? Who pays? Does the court pay, especially one that is court mandated? Or do we, the parties that are involved, pay for the services? What are the terms, and what happens when it comes to matters money?
Two things. There will never be a cheaper method of resolving disputes than mediation. For example, if you file a commercial matter in court right now worth $1 million, the filing cost will be about 70,000. If you mediate on the same matter, you'll probably pay a mediator 40 or 50,000. So compared to any other method of dispute resolution, mediation is the cheapest. Court annexed mediation, the matter was in court, and then you failed to agree, and it was sent to a mediator, the court pays for that. The mediator is like, I get my pay from the court. Every time I mediate a matter, the court pays me. But then again, it's paying me from whose money? Part of what you paid as filing fees. Mulisumbuana, mkaenda mukafile divorce huko, mkalipishwa filing fees ya 100,000, wakili akakula ingine yake ya 150,000. Kwa hiyo 100,000 tu ndio koti watakata pesa yangu kidogo ile wananilipa ya kufanya mediation. I always tell people, if you can find a way to invite a neutral third party, a court annexed mediator, someone who is Supreme Court certified, so that they help you go through because we also understand the law. Nitakwambia hapa ukienda kataenda hivi. And you know, going to court sometimes you can live there with a jail term. There is no jail term in mediation. In court, you can get a fine. There's no jail term in mediation. There's no fine in mediation. In courts, you can get what you'd call an injunction. Like you can even get a court order stopping you from going within 100 meters of where she lives. Mediation will never grant you that. So go for the most superior method of dispute resolution, mediation. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. The most superior, I wish I can highlight that so that we put it there. The most superior way of conflict resolution is mediation. Now, allow me to take you back
Oh
to the
my.
issue about land, especially when when the person or the breadwinner dies. In the case, maybe a husband. We have seen cases here in Kenya where very powerful families, very
And
prominent families, very rich families have fought over splitting what was there. Now they have nothing, actually. They have nothing. And there's one particular family that I was thinking about when we were talking about mediation. A particular family, they refused to release 2 million from their account so that one of them could go to the hospital and receive cancer treatment. And that person ended up dying just because they couldn't sign the accounts. In some of these dire cases, very serious issues, polygamous, they have 2, 3 wives, they can't seem to agree, including burial dates. There's a time here hapa kwetu Limuru, somebody died because he had 2 wives na alikuwa anaishi na Gashungwa, or the younger wife. She said the older wife said he's not going to get married. Nato amechimba shimo, the day of the burial has reached, and the wife refuses, and the person isn't buried. He's taken back to the mortuary. In those kind of situations, what happens if we invite a mediator? Can that help? Can that resolve that dispute? Can those conversations be put on the table and they had? Because it's important that people know that what you have agreed as a family is accepted by law and is final. There is no going back to say no, we didn't agree. Some of those things. What is your take on that? How can we fix such issues, and can they be fixed through mediation?
yes, first before I go so far, I'll say I think my phone has about 15 or 10 minutes before it dies. I think it's not keeping charge, but I'll see what to do. I'll connect to charge. Okay, it's okay. I'll move closer to a charge. Nah,
Yes.
don't worry. Now, so this is what I was trying to tell you. Mediation in such cases is actually the best way to go. The problem usually comes, there's this thing of the first family or the first children of the first wife feeling that they are the only children and they're entitled
Yes.
to get everything in that family, and that the second wife alikuja kuharibu na yeye afai na watoto wake afai kupata chochote. And you probably don't understand that maybe that second wife kept this man sober and sane for the remaining part of his life, and so on and so forth. So when you start explaining to people that you could have been born anywhere else anyway, and these things could have gone to another person anyway, and you can die anyway, so people start seeing that we are not alive because of property. We are alive because God has given us life and grace to be alive. And so it doesn't matter. I mean, you can mediate on virtually any other matter. It is possible to sit and agree and just come up with a way. Yeah.
It's good to know that, Kinothia, and I'm really excited about our show today, because today we have mainly focused on mediation, because people keep on asking us, how do we resolve this conflict? How do we resolve? Now, I want to step back a bit. We have talked about the major cases. We have talked about inheritance and sharing of inheritance. We have talked about issues of domestic and criminal cases and civil cases. But I'm wondering, what about a small dispute that really can't go to court? That maybe we are fighting over something small. Unajua zile conflict tu za kawaida zenye tuko nazo, but we cannot seem to be on the same page. We just can't agree. But it's not a big matter that warrants to go to court. It's not a big matter that warrants for me to sue you or you to sue me. And we don't want to involve family. And you don't want to you've thought about calling relationship coaches. Probably you've invited one, akawa disappoint, they didn't deliver. Maybe you went to a counselor, the counselor also didn't deliver. Maybe you spoke to your pastor decided to side with the most faithful mushirika of their church, and you're wondering, okay, can we invite a mediator in that kind of a story, whereby maybe a couple is fighting over intimacy? Huyu anataka, huyu hataki. Huyu anataka kupewa, huyu hataki kupeana. In that kind of a scenario, is it possible to invite a mediator even in scenarios where matters finances? The man is feeling, wewe unakaa kwa nyumba tu na ufanyi kitu yoyote. The wife is feeling, I take care of you, I clean the house, I do this and that, so I'm playing my role, just not financially role. In that kind of a scenario, would we still invite a mediator to come in and resolve such kind of a dispute?
Thank you. Yes, we would. But I'll tell you one thing that my good motivational speaker, Les Brown, likes saying that before you do something, take time to pray about it. Because if it is wrong, then it is wrong. And nothing wrong ever turned out right. There are times we choose our spouse ourselves. We choose someone who is not fit to have been our husband or our wife for that matter. And you start living with them. And then along the way, you realize that this was the wrong person. And then you keep hoping you can change them. You keep start praying and hoping and making noise and believing that that person is going to change. And then you are waist deep into it. You've already done a church wedding and so on and so forth. So even if I come as a mediator, I mean, you took a shoe that was meant for the right leg and put it on the left leg. And you keep hoping that it can change shape and become a shoe for the right leg. I believe there's something about rib. And I have seen this in mediation. If you get the wrong person from the word go, and don't say there's no such thing as a wrong person. When you're about to go into a relationship, and I don't want to become a relationship coach, but I can tell you this from someone who's done mediation for a long time. It's like walking into butter and trying to choose a new pair of shoes. The first thing you do is you get the most appealing shoe. And then you try to fit it on your foot. And then you try to feel how it feels. If it's too big, hiyo kiatu, by the time ukitoka bata na kiatu that is slightly bigger than you, mutasumbuana mpaka mwisho wa dunia. Unajaribu kuweka insole, unajaribu kuambia fundi aifinye pande hii. If it is too tight, alafu unasema tutazoeana huko mbele, unakanyanga ndani. You're saying tutazoeana. You take that shoe, and the minute you leave that butter shop, mnaanza kusumbuana nayo. Again, you need to buy a shoe that you can probably wear in a cold weather, in a wet weather, in a dry weather, in a dusty weather. Some of us buy slippers and we want to use them even for the muddy season. And so on and so on. So when you're buying a shoe, you consider so many things. And you'll want to buy the kind of shoe that hata ukitembea kwa barabara, ukikaa unaangalia chini, you know, when you're stepping on the pavement, you're careful because you've chosen right. You've chosen something you're happy with. The problem is most of us go to Bata and on day one we leave with a shoe yenye inatufinya ama kiatu yenye the heel is too high ama kiatu yenye ni kofokofo ndani, you can feel kuna a lot of space left, and so you're fighting with that, and then you call a mediator. You tell them, I want you to help me so that this shoe can fit me properly, and he'll look at you and say, Kaimwadhani, sasa huyu enye hii ni slippers alibae na anaishi Syokimau kwa vumbi na anangoja hii slippers itamsaidia huku Syokimau kwa hii vumbi hii miaka yote. And he just looks at you and says, I know your problem. He just doesn't want to tell you. Your problem is that you chose the wrong shoe from the word go. It's an oversized one. Or it's so sometimes you look at couples and you realize no matter how well they want to resolve their disputes, these people are not cut out for one another. This shoe was not meant for this weather. It was not meant for this location. And some of us are there. I'm seeing so many people struggling with very low BMWs on our roads here. Na hata mzungu akiona huko anasema this car was meant for Europe. What is it doing here in Mathare? Unaona vile anaenda hata kwa bump anasumbuka. So as a mediator, sometimes I want to help, but the couples are so wrongly paired, and you can tell that even if they live together for 70 years, it's never gonna work. So I wish I had the courage to tell them, please go back to the shop and choose the right one. But I can't.
I like that aspect. I like that aspect of mediation as as Kinodia is putting it, because as a relationship coach, I'm very restricted on what I can be able to tell somebody. And as a counselor, you're more of a listener than even a speaker. So what I feel, if you have tried counseling and it's not working for you, you have tried coaching and coaching is not working for you, I think you need to see a mediator who can outrightly just tell you, you guys, the shoe just doesn't fit. I think sometimes it's important to hear it from a third person who has no interest and they have the mandate to do that. And that's what I'm really excited about mediation. The major difference from mediation, to counseling, to coaching, there's a very clear way of how matters are handled in mediation. And I think that's very encouraging to see, to actually even see. Now, there's a comment here that has caught my eye, Kinothia, and this Wycliffe is saying, please let me highlight this comment from Jesus Christ. Sasa, that men issues aren't taken seriously. And I want to hear what is your thought in that particular thing, because there's a lot of issues when it comes to conflict resolution. Actually, it is true that men issues are not taken seriously. It is only when a woman cries out and says, Ananipiga, utaniwa, that everybody responds and comes forth. We saw this video that was trending so much on Facebook of this lady who was saying that the man is asking her, get out of the car, and she's telling him, nitapiga nduru watu wakuja niwaambie unataka kuniua, you know. So what happens? I want to hear what are your thoughts in those kind of scenarios, and what can men do who are affected by conflict, that their matters can actually be taken seriously and actually handled with the seriousness it deserves.
I think it will take a lot of mind change. I mean,
Yes.
we have not had police officers who are being trained on how to handle a man who's come and is complaining he's been beaten by the wife. There's a lot of gender desks in various police stations where you can report gender-based violence. And usually they expect the woman will come and say, I've been beaten up. They don't expect a man to come and say they've been beaten up. So there's a lot that needs to change even at the law enforcement itself. And then also, our men grew up knowing that they are macho. They cannot be beaten. They cannot be taken through gender-based violence and so on and so forth. But you see, men are also getting a different kind of violence. Like now, I mean, it's a serious kind of violence if a man has not had sex in his own house for a year or, 6 months and is being denied his conjugal rights and so on and so forth. So the issues of men are not taken seriously. And if a man comes and says that my conjugal rights have been denied for this period of time, they laugh at him and tell him, siupitie huko Koinange, siujisort kwani lazima ushinde hapa kwa nyumba. And then those men now go out there and you hear they have a mpango wa kando. And then people start saying these men have become mannerless. They become this and this and this. So yes, the issues of men are not taken seriously. They are treated like they have a solution to their problem anyway. They should just sort themselves.
Yeah, and I get very concerned about that, because as a world we need to change and we need to evolve with the changing culture. We also need to create a lot of education, and people like us need to keep talking about these things so that the seriousness of these matters can be taken by the government. And before we go, there's somebody here who wants to speak to you, Kenodia. She's called Zwena, and she's asking, do you know what happened in Siaya yesterday? I don't know what happened in Siaya yesterday, but she's asking you. So maybe you can continue to read the comment below and see what happened in Siaya.
If that was just a burial, imagine what would happen to those kids if in the future, wanaume, it's good to keep your children together. Introduction means a lot. Okay, I think this is the situation where people appear during a burial. And
yes.
I don't know what happened in Siaya, but I'm imagining that's what could have happened. I blame the men. My late father, I have lots of respect for him. My late father alikuja when he was alive, akagawa property zake, akatuambia wewe ni hapa, hapa, hapa. And he lived for another 11 years before he died from the day he divided his property. Wanaume tuwache ujinga na upuzi. Kama uko na watoto, wacha wajulikane wote. Kama uko na property, gawa ukiwa alive. Don't wait for lawyers to come and steal most of your property and transfer to their own names and make a lot of money from court cases. Men be men enough. If you can father them, then introduce them to one another. Let them be known as the children. Own up. If I help people as a lawyer, one of the things I help them do, other than just mediation, is to write a will. And writing a will there's nothing wrong with writing a will. Write a will, keep it safely. I'll help you. Come up with a nice way. I'll give you a format. I'll guide you so that ukituondokea usiache shida. They say a good man leaves a will, a bad man leaves a bill. Don't leave a bill.
Thank you so much. And as we come to the end, I'm being told it is the scandal of Watoto Benjamin Ayimba. I think he was an artist of some kind, Anyoboke something.
Oh,
and
he was my captain in rugby.
Yeah,
my phone is on 5%. Yes.
Ati sister yake alikataa watoto wakuje. Now that we are about to close, we're actually finishing the show. I want us to give you this opportunity to take 2 minutes, your 2 minutes of fame, and advise people about mediation, how to resolve conflict, how they can contact you and reach you on Facebook, Fanya Mambo Kinodia, and also tell them that you're a motivational speaker. That is how I know you, because we do the same. We are in the same line of business, so that maybe they can hear from you. If there's somebody who is in a conflict, maybe you can give them a guidance on how they can move forward from that point. You have your 2 minutes. before your 5 minutes are over. Continue.
Actually, before my phone dies, all I would like to tell you is that mediation is a great way to go. You can resolve your disputes by having a conversation. Let's sit, let's talk. I'm on motivational speaker Fanya Mambo Kinuthia. My Facebook page is Fanya Mambo Kinuthia. Anybody who wants my number can get it from Nyokabi Kamau. And all I would tell people is before you go to court, think of mediation. There are better ways to resolve your dispute. And there is no dispute that, apart from the criminal ones, that we can't sit and try to find a way around. And there's nothing wrong with finding out that it is not possible to live with your current spouse. If you do, don't be forced to live there and die. Some of you die at 25, we bury you at 70. Because umekuwa tu ukiishi na mtu, you are in pain and anguish. So many people died at 22, they were buried at 54. Don't wait for the 54 to be buried. And don't die early. I mean, if it doesn't work, don't force it. It's okay to live. It's fine. You lick your wounds, but you're alive. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kinuthia. I'm truly humbled that you could join me on this show tonight. And I was so
Thank you
excited
for having me.
I am so excited to host you, and I'm looking forward to hosting you again on other different topics and different capacities. Now, allow me to thank each and every person who joined me today. I did not focus so much on the comment section today because I really wanted us to exhaust this topic on mediation, open it up and open it up. Now, I want to invite you to leave your questions in the comment sections even after this session is over so that we can always address them in our next show on Saturday. Now, on Wednesday, you know what we do on Wednesday. We have an amazing show for you waiting to host you. We can't wait. And I'm hoping that Ellie will be somewhere visible. But for tonight, it was just me and you. So much love from me to you, and I want you to know that I appreciate each and every one of you. And thank you so much, Ellie, for remaining in the comment sections. I don't know where Victoria Nikada was. And thank you so much, Nora Mbata. Thank you, Zvena. Thank you, everybody that joined us today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you have any questions, please don't forget to leave them in the comments below. And remember, hashtag at InHeart, hashtag responding to life, and of course, Marriage Connect Kenya. My name is Nyokabi GK Kamau, and I am your all-time relationship coach. If you need to get in touch with me, please follow me on all my social media accounts. And don't forget to follow Ellie, my all-time host, who is always here with us. He passes his love, even as if he wasn't able to be here with us today. So I look forward to seeing you on Wednesday. Same time, same place.